Winning cures everything. Now for your hosts, Gary and Chris.
Welcome in. Winning cures everything. It is Tuesday, July the 21st. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And we have got some football stuff to discuss today. Ben jumps in on Twitch already. He said, good afternoon. I see some people have been waiting for us to go live here. So I have had internet issues all day long. So I apologize to everybody that has been waiting. And if something goes crazy, we can blame it on Comcast because they came out and fixed some stuff and told me that I am good to go. And if I'm not, well, I'm going to be fired up. So, and I might be fired up today anyway because we're going to discuss some crazy stuff with football. And then I'm going to be a little happy because we're going to talk about some really respected women in the field of sports. So we'll discuss all of that momentarily. Of course, before we begin, winningcureseverything.com is the website. Make sure you go check it out. All of our picks, previews, podcasts, videos, and social media platforms. If you're watching the show live, you are on Periscope, Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube. You can subscribe or like or whatever you want to at any of those just to make sure that you get notified for the show every day. Monday through Friday, we are right here. If you would like to jump in on the show and give your opinion, the chat box is in the bottom left-hand corner. Whatever platform you are on, it will populate right there. So Periscope, Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, any of those comment sections will all jump into that same spot right there, just like Ben has already done, where he said good afternoon. And I will say good afternoon to all of you as well. Before we start anything, Chris, did you see that the University of Texas is planning to have 50% capacity at college football games this year?
I didn't, and I'm excited. That gives me hope.
It gives me hope as well. I'm wondering exactly how feasible that will be. I know that they've got a 100,000 plus seat stadium, and I mean that'll mean 50,000 people. So I mean, if they can get 50,000 people into a game, let's go. I'm in. But I'm a little suspicious of it. It sounds great. I'm wondering if they're just trying to sell a bunch of tickets. I don't know exactly what they're trying to do, but we'll figure it out one way or another. Either way, we're happy. We like to hear positive news. We like to have wishful thinking on this show. With that said, let's go ahead and fire this thing off. The ACC. Now, this happened. Ben jumps in immediately. He said Rutgers is letting in 0%. Really going to miss those fans. Yeah. Syracuse as well. New York did say that. We weren't going to talk about the negatives. Syracuse will not be able to have fans. No other teams in New York, New Jersey, whatever, will be able to have fans. So definitely not good. But either way, the positive news, the ACC, of course, talking about having a season. We saw the Big Ten and the Pac-12 go to conference only. The SEC, ACC, and Big 12 likely, I think, to go conference only, but obviously they're waiting until the beginning of August, which is just a couple of weeks away to decide that. But one of these scheduling options that the ACC has put forward, and it's leaked out, they've got a bunch of different options, but one of them that is incredibly interesting, at least to us, is the idea of bringing in Notre Dame and having a pod system to where you only, it's 5 teams each. So there's 14 teams currently in the ACC. You add in Notre Dame, that's 15. You do 3 pods of 5 teams, and you only play those teams. So it would be an 8-game schedule, home and away for each team. Now, Chris, before I let you begin, because I know you're raring to go, let me read off the pods here. The first one would be Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Virginia Tech. The second would be Notre Dame.
That's a loaded pod, considering that conference is pretty weak outside of Clemson.
And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I mean, that is every other good team outside of bringing in Notre Dame.
So the other side of this is they would
no dispersion. Well, I guess that's disrespect to the rest of those teams. But yeah, that's completely disrespectful.
The other side of this is that they are doing this in hopes of having a 9th game be against whoever their SEC or whatever rival would be, right? So they would have one non-conference game.
The non-con game.
Yes. So with that one, Clemson, FSU, Miami, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech. Pod B would be Notre Dame, Louisville, Syracuse, Pittsburgh, Boston College. Pod C would be North Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest, Duke, and Virginia. Now, I understand the North Carolina pod, right? And Utah and Virginia, they are the closest to those schools. However, with the other pod, with Clemson having Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Miami, and Florida State in it, how do you not have Virginia Tech and Virginia in the same pod?
I don't know.
I mean,
I don't understand. I think these people come up with good ideas, and then they fall so short of executing them well.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't know the reason behind the pods. Just say if we're going to play only conference games, do what we talked about earlier, which what we kind of assume that the Big Ten's going to do, but maybe they don't, which is make a 4-week schedule and then every 2 weeks kick it out 2 more weeks and just figure it out. But when you lock yourself into these 5 teams are only going to play one another, what happens if one of them goes down for 2 weeks with the Rona? Now you've affected another team in that pod when they could just say, okay, that team is down. Let's bring in this other team. They got 2 weeks of a bye week, and then we'll get them back in the mix later. Like, you've handcuffed yourself by doing this.
It's really
You've made this thing that's already complicated more complicated because of your own foolery.
Oh, before we go further, I haven't explained on the show because Chris and I were debating this a little bit before we went live. This whole thing is basically to limit the travel and limit the amount of interactions between people. Now, to me, it doesn't make sense to play the same team twice because there will be so much time in between that other person could possibly get the coronavirus or whatever. Right. What difference would it make who it is on the other side? Like, to me, it doesn't make any difference, right? So the amount of travel, like you've talked about the travel, it's so dumb. It is absolutely.
We have to stop using travel for college football as an excuse for the big Power 5 schools that make a gazillion dollars. We have to stop using travel as an excuse. There is no different from the University of Miami to fly to Seattle and play the University of Washington than it is from Alabama to get on a bus and drive to Auburn. There's zero difference in that. They are going to be on a charter plane that is going to go from point A to point B. They're going to go to a hotel that they book up the whole thing. They're the only people in it. And then they're going to take a chartered bus that they're the only people in it and go to the stadium. That's it. There is no difference whatsoever if Ole Miss were to come up and play Memphis, which is 35, 45 minutes away, all right, down the road. No difference in the travel for both of those outside of that plane ride is just a longer bus ride. That's it. We have to stop using that as an excuse. So you're gonna fat load one division with 4 of the best teams in the conference. And then you're going to have another division with 5 of the worst teams in the conference, strictly because they're all close to one another. Listen, that's something that the Sun Belt Conference needs to be doing, okay? That's something that these little G5 schools need to be thinking about. That is not something that the ACC needs to be worried about. I assure you, there's enough money for Boston College to fly to Miami. That can happen. They can make that plane ride happen without a massive expense, okay? Yeah. You still get Virginia Tech and Virginia playing one another. You make that happen. I just don't get once again, they're taking an already complicated situation by dealing with the Rona and making it more complicated just because that's what college officials do. That's what this administration does. They're just morons. I have no idea how these people got the jobs that they got. I don't understand what they're good at outside of raising money. That seems to be all these athletic directors are good at all. All these school presidents are good at is just raising money because they don't know how to problem solve. They don't know how to troubleshoot. They're solving the wrong problems, which is travel, That's not a problem that you have, by the way. But they're going to solve that problem, not a problem, outside of solving the health problem and the safety problem and the scheduling problem. Those are real problems, but they don't want to solve those. No. They don't want to give themselves flexibility and ins and outs to be able to maneuver and manipulate. They want to solve all the wrong problems.
Yeah, I agree.
I just can't explain how frustrating it is to watch morons work. So I'm in the construction world, okay? I'm in and out of construction. Listen, this is no stereotype, no disbursement to the good people that do that work. But I sit back and I watch construction projects all day long, okay? And 70% of the people that walk onto these sites are complete morons. And watching them try to figure out very simple problems, a little amusing and a lot of sad.
Yes.
This is no different, except these guys make 7 figures and those guys make double-digit figures, okay? They make tens of dollars and they make millions of dollars.
Yes. Oh, very much so. Matt Miller jumps on YouTube, by the way. He said, not playing out-of-conference games doesn't make sense at all. Even if the travel thing did matter, there are plenty of out-of-conference games that are close, like Florida and FSU, Georgia Tech. Now, hold on. Let me tackle this one. We've already discussed this on the show. I believe it was last Monday's show, where we went through an entire 35-minute ordeal explaining why conference only would actually work the best for this season. And the reason that is because every conference is going to have different testing protocols. They're going to have different protocols for whatever they need to get done, right? So there's one basic NCAA one, and then there's a different one for each conference. So you can only set it for your conference teams, right? So if you're Alabama, you know exactly what Auburn's going to be doing. You know exactly what LSU's going to be doing. You know exactly what Florida, Georgia, whatever is going to be doing. If you are Alabama, you don't know what Clemson's doing. If you're Florida State, you don't know what Florida's doing, and vice versa. So that's why it makes it. Now, obviously, the ADs talk, and you're going to want to do everything as best as possible. But if somebody else is cutting corners, you don't want to put your team at risk. And
it's not just the cutting corners or the testing. It's the control of the schedule.
Yes.
What happens if the week of a non-con game, one team gets hit real bad with the virus? A commissioner can make a ruling and figure out to manipulate the schedule. We're trying to get in basically 8 to 10 games in 15 weeks, okay? But if you're dealing with 2 commissioners trying to work out 2 conference schedules to make up this one meaningless game, it's just not worth it. I don't understand the purpose of doing it, and you're not going to really have fans in the stands. Even if you're at half capacity, that's not a road game. That's going into Death Valley with 40,000 people, going into Austin, Texas with 50,000 people isn't a home game for anybody. Nobody has a home field advantage doing that.
No, not at all.
So let's be reasonable and I just want, like I said, and we talked about this last week, you want conference only because that's our best way to get a real full schedule in, because those individual conference commissioners can control everything. They just have to not put together some bullshit cockamamie plan that doesn't make sense at all and makes their job even harder.
Correct. The games that you need to get in this season are your division games. That's it. And for the conferences that don't have divisions, at that point, it doesn't really matter.
No, you want to get in your big rivalry games. At some point in time, we're going to want Oklahoma and Texas to play each other somewhere.
Yeah, we want Oklahoma State.
And Oklahoma State. Those games need to happen. And that's a big deal. Baylor and TCU need to happen at some point in time, and that's okay. But we can figure that out.
Let's see. Matt Miller, Joseph Gomez, by the way, going back to your construction stuff, he said, "How many people do you need to dig a hole? 6 to watch, 1 to dig." Yeah.
Oh no! And all those people watching are all the people with a degree, and the poor sap digging is some Guatemalan that makes $8 an hour.
Yeah. Matt Miller said that's why we need a commissioner, because every conference should have the same protocols. Well, that's kind of difficult because not every conference makes the same amount of money. That's the biggest problem with this whole thing.
You can't tell the Sun Belt, to spend the same amount of money on testing. That's a beautiful world that we would live in if they would have that luxury. But the MAC don't have that. They just don't have that luxury. Okay. They don't have that kind of money.
The idea
all those pay for win money that they were getting in, from this year. They're losing all that.
Yeah. The idea of socialism is great. It's a utopian world.
No, hang on.
But it doesn't work.
It actually would work. Yes, it would work in college sports because it's not real life. Okay, it's a sport. The NFL is socialism. Okay, Major League Baseball is socialism. All right, one large person over everybody, telling everybody what to do and sharing the revenue equally works great in sports. It absolutely works.
Yes. Okay.
And there's absolutely a way to do it, especially if you continue to not pay the players. You've got enough money to go around for everybody.
Yes.
Like I said, if every Power 5 team just threw $2 million into a hat every year, and that $2 million from every team went to divided equally between all the G5 schools, then bam, you've fixed the problem, and they no longer have to play them ever again.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That would be nice.
I fixed it. Boom. Mark Emmert. There you go. Free idea for you right there.
Problem solved. Problem solved. I like it. I like it. Matt Miller said, I'm just talking Power 5 or Power 6. I could care less about Akron. So, and then he said the American is 6th. Yeah. Mike Camp, and that's how it works with the money as well. So, yeah,
but there's just no reason for the ACC and the SEC to play this year unless you get all 10 of your games in and you realize that this virus hasn't beat up these schools that badly and everything seems to be going fine, and you get into week 11 and week 12 and you say, we got nothing else to do before the end of the season. You guys want to play? And then you figure it out. Then you get with the commissioner, you work a deal, and you put a game up. I'm sure ESPN would love the inventory.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
It's not hard to do these things on the back end. You don't have to have it all planned out on the front end.
Mike Campion said the problem will also be the local restrictions. And I want to get to something that he said earlier as well, which he's right about local restrictions, by the way, because, the different states have got worse situations than others. So it's just going to be up to what's going on in those states. Like, you may be able to have Kentucky, Louisville, and not have Clemson, South Carolina. It just depends on what's going on, right? So, we'll see what happens there. Mike also said now there's going to be a major debate for who gets in the playoffs. I will go ahead and admit on this show, I don't care if we have a playoff or not. I just want a season one way or another. Now, a playoff would be great.
I'm being flexible. I'm willing to give up a lot this year, okay, just to get football in.
Give me football, give me lines, give me something to bet on and something to watch, and I will be fine.
Real games that matter. I don't even care at the outcome, what the standings are and how you rank. No, Clemson and Ohio State are going to moonwalk to undefeated seasons probably. That's fantastic. That's great. Who's number one? Who's number two? I don't know. We'll figure that out later. I'm not worried about it. I just want to have something to do on Saturday mornings when I wake up. My wife is yelling at me to cut the grass, and I got to say, no, I got to watch football.
Yeah.
That's all I
want. Let's see. Matt Miller said, this disproves the BS about changing the schedules because of the scheduling in advance. This season is going to throw that lie out the window. Here's hoping. If Alabama and BYU can get together a week 1 game a month out, obviously you can do it other years as well. Right now, you've already got schedule or contracts drawn up, all that kind of mess right now. But you don't have to do that.
4 years. LSU is scheduled to play a home and home with somebody a decade from now. Who the hell is going to be the coach of those teams? What are they going to look like? Are we all going to be? I'm probably not going to be alive in 10 years.
Yeah. I doubt that. You better be around. Winning Cures Everything is going to be celebrating 15 years. So
that's good.
Mike Campion said, unfortunately, he said, unfortunately, I'm not hopeful for college football because a lot of people don't care about sports. Here is what the people that are in charge of that do care about, though, and that is money. And if you don't play college football, you don't have money. You have to cut a lot of different things that college football money goes to support, and that includes different academic situations, different academic institutions inside of your college. A lot of those things get their trickle down from college football. So when these presidents don't really give a rip one way or the other, whether there's sports on TV or not, they do care about that green. That changes things.
You brought up something. This is a tangent. It might affect how long the show goes. I apologize. But I want to tell me what you think of this solution. listening to my favorite sports podcast to listen to outside of ours is the Yahoo College Sports podcast. Dan Wetzel, Pat Forty, Pete Thamel. I worship at the feet of Dan Wetzel. I love that man. There's never been a writer outside of Tony Kornheiser that's meant more to me in my life. This guy was talking about, he brought up the conversation of Title IX. And if you have football, you have to, at least legally, because of Title IX, have to have some women's sports. So you got 100 football college scholarships, so you need to have 100 female scholarships thrown out there somewhere for athletic. Is it possible to still give, like, to say this year, because of financials, we're not going to play women's volleyball and women's soccer, but we're still going to provide the scholarship to the people that have it? So you still give out the 100 female scholarships, so we're legally okay, and you got it strictly for sports. It's only for women that are currently there, that played last year, that have their scholarship in hand. But as long as the scholarships equal each other and it's for athletics and not academics, that's got to pass the law, right? Without saying we don't have the money to play your sport this year, but you still get the year of education for free on us.
I would
imagine. You
imagine.
think that would fly? Because I think that would suffice the legal problem.
I think so. Yeah.
These women still get their year of education. And if they, and then I would grant everybody redshirted to where if all those women basketball players or whoever you give the scholarships to, if they want a red shirt and continue playing after that, they're just going to get continued education on the house. I think that's
it makes sense to me, but at the same time, you're thinking logically, and
that's our problem. The NCAA just doesn't.
Yeah,
these people just don't.
Well, and
why
on
they have to play the sport to not get, like, you don't have to say, well, I'm sorry, we couldn't afford to play the sport, but we've got this funny money where you can only use it at the company store. That costs us nothing.
Well, here's the other side, though.
Nothing.
Here's the other side of this is that Title IX issue is a federal law, and the NCAA doesn't really have anything to do with it, right?
But that's why I think that would suffice the federal law, because the federal law says you have to have equal scholarships for equal athletics, right?
Yeah, I would think so.
You got 100 football scholarships, and those are the only people playing this year that we care about because they generate all the money, but they're not going to generate enough to play any of these other sports. So we're not going to cut your scholarships. We're still going to give out 100 female scholarships.
Yeah, I think it'd be fine. Joseph Gomez jumps in on YouTube, by the way. They have more than a couple months to create a bubble somewhere in the South. By week 8 or 9, the Winning Cures Everything tennis podcast is coming soon. I can guarantee you that will not be what we will be discussing. Mike Campion said, not only states, I'm in Florida, and every county is different. Yeah, that's...
I'm going to tell you that the areas in which these kids are playing, the state schools especially, they're going to be loose enough to allow the other teams to come in, because those other teams are going to come in such a restricted bubble way.
Yeah.
They're going to come in on their own private plane. They're going to charter. But they're not flying Southwest, guys.
No, not in the slightest. Matt Miller said sports is the most watched thing on TV. Some more people care about sports than anything else on TV. He also said Title IX is socialist BS. I'll leave that to the comments. Mike Campion said, without a doubt, it's about money, but also they're going to make sure to keep throwing the college athletes are student athletes. Yes, they are student athletes, and I'll tell you this, it's like 95, 96, 97% of them want to play. The majority of these conferences have come out and said
they have been told if they don't want to play, they get the red shirt.
Yeah, they can red shirt and they can keep their scholarship. So
they keep the scholarship and they don't lose a year of eligibility. If you don't want to play for any reason, you don't have to say I have a medical condition and I'm afraid. I'm just afraid. Okay.
Yeah. Simple enough. Joseph said, if no one's playing the sport, there is no scholarship per se. So yes, red shirt them. Yeah. I'm not sure I fully understand what you're saying, but I'm
saying give them the damn scholarship even if they're not playing.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
Because we have to keep up the law, right?
Yeah.
We have to surpass the 100 here, 100 there rule, or whatever the number is. I don't know how many college football scholarships you get.
85.
Probably know that. 85.
85 scholarships.
You got 85 men's scholarships. We're cutting everybody else. We got to find 85 females that are playing right now. You 85 women get to keep your scholarships. Congratulations.
Well, you're also going to find 13 basketball scholarships. So you're probably right looking at 100.
But hang on. Do you think they care about basketball right now?
Not right this second, but they will here shortly. I
don't know if they will shortly or not, but maybe they will.
Oh, I think they will. That is still for a lot of schools a big moneymaker. So, yeah, there's places that care more about that than they do football. So,
well, yeah, because there's a lot of those schools that don't even have football.
Exactly. Let's move on from that. We've spent a nice long while on it. Let's discuss the first female Major League Baseball assistant coach. The San Francisco Giants got her on first base during an exhibition game on Monday. Alyssa Nakin, the first female coach of a Major League Baseball staff in league history, became the first woman to coach on the field during a Major League game on Monday. Now, it was a scrimmage, basically, but she is going to be out there. And I think we actually talked about this back in January, because she was hired January 16th as an assistant coach as part of Gabe Kapler's staff. But now, I mean, she's actually out there. She's doing it, and, I mean, it's kind of awesome. It says she was a four-time academic All-American softball player for Sacramento State, joined the Giants in 2014, is currently responsible for developing, producing, and directing a number of the organization's health and wellness initiatives and events, including coordinating the Giant Race Series. She joined the organization in 2014 as an intern in the baseball ops department, where she worked on a variety of special projects related to the amateur draft, international operations, and player development. I mean, she is, you looking at her accolades, I mean,
her resume is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And when I first read this, I was trying to figure out, all right, what assistant hole are they putting her in? And then when I saw, holy shit, they're putting her on first base, like
that's big.
That's a real job. Like, that's the equivalency of hiring a female coordinator in football.
Now, that does not mean that she's going to be first base all season, but
I bet she will be.
I bet she might be. So,
because baseball is not made up of, it's not football. Okay, they don't have 100 coaches out there.
No,
right?
Absolutely not. Yeah,
no,
I'm with you.
There's like 5 of them. Okay,
but she had not been out there before Monday, so
that's big news.
It is definitely big news. Ben jumps in. He said, Sacramento State, let's go. Of course, Ben out in Sacktown. Yeah, absolutely. So, it's a pretty big deal. We like to see things like this. You and I talk about this all the time, market inefficiencies. If somebody else does not want to hire you for whatever reason, if you are qualified enough, somebody will, and they will be a better organization because of it.
No. Yeah. And here's the thing, baseball, this is not football. This is not basketball. This is not hockey. This is not any of these other sports. It is so analytically driven right now. There is a book, okay, that some mathematicians have put together, and all 30 teams go by the exact same playbook. If you have this scenario in this situation with this many balls and strikes, you do this. It is a memorize and remember and execute thing. That's it. Yeah. That's what the sport has become. It's made it a lot more boring, but it's also made it to where you can't say, well, this guy's got 100 years of experience and we're going with it. Nobody goes with gut anymore. There is a set rule. You have seen this batter 3 times. You are pulled. Bring somebody else in. It is so mathematical now. There's zero reason to say a woman can't do this job.
Yes. I agree.
We're getting to a point to where if you're at a certain age, ageism is going to come in here. The old guys are probably going to find their way out if they haven't surrounded themselves with young, real smart math guys.
Oh, absolutely agreed. I mean, it's kind of happening in football
My boy, my hero, Terry Francona, is hanging on because Cleveland has just surrounded him with one of the best analytical departments baseball has to offer, because that guy is not worried about your batting average and your OPS and all that stuff. He is chawing on some chew and cussing like a sailor.
No, you got that right. Ben said the crowd noise the A's pumped into that game sounded straight out of a horror movie. Yeah, I went back and watched some of that. I saw a lot of the chatter on social media.
Baseball is going to be weird, but I'm
pretty weird.
but I love this sport, and I want to get us to a point where we can have some fans in the stands. I want to go to a ballpark.
Yeah.
I just
I'd love
want
that.
to sit in a ballpark.
I've watched several games, and I'll tell you this, the no crowd noise doesn't bother me that much.
No, it doesn't bother me. It's weird, but it doesn't bother me.
It's a little strange, but when you stop thinking about it, it's really not that bad because it's just like a day baseball game. I mean,
I'll tell you this, that pop of the ball hitting the glove is you
gotta love
nostalgia. That I really actually like hearing a lot. It's weird to hear it so quiet, but I really enjoy the sounds of the game.
Oh, and the crack of the bat. I mean, just everything. It's awesome. Ben said that noise along with the cardboard cutouts is creepy. Yeah, it's definitely that. It is definitely that. Let's go ahead and talk about some other good news. The first woman lead radio broadcaster, NFL's Washington team, whatever their nickname will be whenever that gets done, they have hired Julie Donaldson as the first female radio lead, replacing the retired Larry Michael. Here's the story from Clutch Points. It says, the Washington football franchise wants nothing more than to move on from all of the reported transgressions from last week. Less than a week after a report of widespread sexual harassment allegations in the organization triggered an abrupt departure, Washington has hired a new lead voice for its radio broadcast. The team decided to go with Julie Donaldson, making her the first female member of an NFL team's radio broadcast booth. According to NBC Sports Washington, anchor and reporter Julie Donaldson is being hired by the team to lead the crew. She's replacing Larry Michael, who was one of the men named in the report. Before coming to the nation's capital, Donaldson was previously a reporter for SNY based in New York. She began her career in Miami with broadcast giant Fox Sports and has worked as a pregame host for the Miami Heat. She has done a lot of stuff, right? So she worked for the Wizards game day shows. I mean, she's all over the place. And this is a smart move by Ben said, can you just call them the Redskins or the Radskins until they get a name? Yeah, all right. So the Washington Radskins have hired Julie Donaldson as the new play-by-play, and this is awesome. This is a smart move by Dan Snyder and that bunch. It shouldn't have taken, all of the allegations from last week, but I think you'd be, kidding yourself if you don't think that had something to do with this. Do you agree with that?
That had everything to do with it, but I'm okay with it. You know how I feel about the people who call the games now. It's not like any of these guys are any good. So many of them are so bad.
Yeah.
On TV, on radio, it's rough.
I'll tell you why. And
it's ridiculous that women haven't had more opportunity.
Agreed.
Because it's not like you're hanging on to Al Michaels, okay?
Agreed. With this situation, though,
somebody's nephew's friend in all of these spots.
Every NFL team, every NBA team, every college team, all of these different ones, and the national broadcast, there are so many broadcasting jobs because everybody has their own broadcast network or their own whatever, and CBS and Fox and whatever, they have so many different channels that they can put guys on, and they've got so many different time slots that CBS and the CBS Sports Network, if they've got two, you got 3-4 different basketball games that can happen in one day, and then you got 2 time slots on regular CBS, and you got 3 on CBS Sports Network. That's 5 broadcast teams for one day. And then you got to move on to the next one, and it's just a disaster. But it does give a lot of people more opportunities, and the cream always rises to the top. The best ones will always find the best jobs. That's just the way it goes. So,
well, I don't know about that. The reason it's taking this long is because I think the majority of people that get those jobs are buddies of buddies or family members.
Yeah.
I think because the owners don't care who's in that job. No, the coaches don't. Nobody who runs the organization actually cares who's calling the game because 0 of them are listening to the games on the radio.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that. Matt Miller said Washington are really trying to bury that sexual assault stuff with this name change and with this. And then Joseph Gomez said, this is a very extended token for the sexism that transpired. Call me when there's a female GM on the Red Tails. Yeah. I can agree with that. I mean,
no.
I'll tell you this. I don't think Snyder's going anywhere. We've already discussed that last Friday. But the stuff that went on with the Dallas Mavericks was obviously none of them are good. But I think the Maverick stuff was even worse than this. And Cuban survived, and he cleaned up that organization.
Now, the difference is Mark Cuban was very absentee in all of that. Shame on him.
Yep.
As soon as he was in the loop, attacked it aggressively.
Oh,
aggressively.
Absolutely.
And Snyder is going to kind of pussyfoot through this thing.
Yes. No, you're right about that. You are right about that. All right, let's close out today's show. We'll finish up with a little more college football. And, of course, more negative news, but we're going to try and turn it positive by kind of crapping on the NCAA a little bit. So, SI released an article from Ross Dellinger about 6 hours ago. It was earlier this morning. It says, college football's stringent contact tracing protocol is a massive challenge to the season. With high-risk contacts to the virus subject to a mandatory 14-day quarantine, is a college football season even possible? It goes through, and they interview and discuss this with Stephen Goodman, an associate dean and professor of epidemiology at Stanford. He goes through, one of his quotes is, you could be talking about knocking out an entire team with this 14-day quarantine based on high-risk contact, which includes collisions at practice, right? So if you've got a guy that ends up testing positive after the fact, and now they're going to test pretty regularly. The NCAA, by the way, their guideline for this is they're going to test 72 hours before Saturday. So they're going to test on Wednesdays, and then they can have a game on Saturday. Do you know how many different things can happen on Thursday and Friday before a game Saturday to get somebody this? I mean, it's insane. That whole thing is ridiculous. But then this side, they're going to try and be really stringent on by saying that if you are in a high-risk contact with somebody that has been found to have the virus, that's nuts. That's absolutely insane. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, if you test everybody and they don't have it, like, that shouldn't be an issue, but it doesn't matter if they test negative or not. If you have been in a situation with somebody that has it, you're supposed to quarantine for 14 days. That's absurd.
Yeah, the rules and the restrictions are just too much. This is the NCAA didn't want to have anything to do with this. So all the conferences were working on their own plans. And then the NCAA comes in on the back over the top and says, no, now we have a plan. We're like 2-3 weeks into getting ready to fire off. I mean, we're a couple of weeks away from, a month away basically from opening week zero.
I mean, we're a week away from camps opening, but they've already been doing voluntary workouts, et cetera.
Yeah,
here's what a college athletic director said.
Now you're going to throw a plan in, and not only are you going to throw a plan in, you're going to throw a plan in that's completely asinine and ridiculous.
Here,
over the top.
This is an anonymous AD. He said, are you telling me a contact is you and I lining up against each other, or you block or tackle me, and 2 days later I come down with the virus and now you're out too? He said, then you're not going to be able to finish the season. One SEC assistant coach described the contact tracing portion of the guidelines as overwhelming, and a Pac-12 team doctor calls the issues a massive challenge. And then West Virginia athletic director Shane Lyons, while on an NCAA video news conference, posed a chilling question last week, saying, how can we play the game of football with contact tracing and not lose the entire team? Like, that's impossible to do. So yeah. I don't think this is going to stick. I think they're going to make an amendment to it because they're going to be testing. Or the Power Five just needs to throw their thumb up in the air at them and say, "Good job, you created something. We've already got a plan. We're going to go forward with our plan. Yeah. We're going to only play in our conference any damn way, so we don't need you, and we're going to go forward with our plan." Oh yeah,
and you can go kick rocks. What are you going to do if we don't? I mean, what power does the NCAA have over the Power Five anymore?
It's not much. It's not much at all.
So when it does say stupid, it hurts you if you're Mark Emmert in the NCAA.
Yeah. This does say COVID-19 is known to produce delayed infection. Most people get sick 5 to 7 days from the time of contraction, but research has also shown some who do not show signs until day 14, says Amesh Adalja, a senior scholar at Johns Hopkins and an infectious disease physician who sits on the NCAA's COVID-19 advisory panel. The 14-day quarantine, while consistent with CDC guidelines, is, quote, a conservative approach. This is going to be really difficult to do. I will admit that.
This ain't happening.
No, it's just not going to happen. And the reason why they're doing this, the NCAA, of course, worried about liability. They're worried about all that. And obviously a lot of colleges are as well.
Yes.
But you gotta look at the science, look at the numbers, and not just, one thing here and there, right? You can't fit something. They don't do this for other viruses, other things. I mean, there's people that play with the flu all the time. So why is that okay? And not that I'm saying that anybody with COVID-19 needs to be playing, but it just doesn't seem to make a lot of logical sense to me. Like, maybe I'm crazy. You agree here?
Oh yeah, I just think they're going too far. At some point in time, you're just making it to where this thing that's already really hard to do, that we're trying to still do, you're making it impossible to do.
So it says, to potentially avoid masses of ineligible players through contact tracing, coaches plan to split a team into small groups, holding as many as 4 practices in a day this fall, says Todd Berry, executive director of the American College Football Association, American Football Coaches Association.
We talked about this the other day with high school sport. There's no reason that, you've got enough coaches and enough facilities for these college complexes to where some groups in the weight room, some groups in the indoor practice facility over here, some groups on the complete other side over there, some groups outside working out on this, some guys are in the pool, some guys are doing this. Like, there's enough small groups or enough facilities for all these Power 5 especially that you can work in separate groups. The problem is all the DBs work together.
Yeah.
All the quarterbacks work together. So if one quarterback goes down, all of them go down. If one running back goes down, when offensive linemen go down, they will all go down because they're all working together.
Yes.
So working in small groups is smart, but it's also not going to stop it from taking an entire team down, because what do you do if the outbreak happens in the quarterback room and those 5 guys are all ineligible to play? You just running the Wildcat the entire game?
I mean, it would be something close. I mean, and look, Kentucky did it last year. I mean, they had 3 quarterbacks that went out. They ended up they got Lynn Bowden. But it's different. That's an emergency situation.
Yeah. You can't predict injuries and stuff like that. We can predict that this thing's probably going to hit at some point in time, some school. And now you're just forcing them to go out there. So what do you do with the offensive line? Now you've put everybody in the backfield in danger.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why they're talking about – that's why we were discussing conferences only, right? Conference-only games. If you run into a situation like that –
the commissioner can say, Alabama, your whole offensive lineman's down this week. You're not playing. Whatever game we had scheduled, this is now a bye week until all those guys get 2 positive tests, or I guess 2 negative tests, and then we'll put you back on the schedule. And if it takes 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks. You get a 2-week bye, and then we figure it out from there. Everybody else is going to keep playing.
Yeah, you got it.
This is not super complex if you were to just not make a whole year schedule and make it. It's hard for a few people who have to make the schedule. Guess what? You're highly compensated. We expect you to do hard things sometimes. You don't get all that money for just having a pretty face and walking around.
Yeah. I mean, you got to come up with something, and it's got to be realistic. It's got to be legit.
God.
So, Ben said, run the underfunded high school system of playing your D lineman and O lineman. I think it's a little different. If I'm going
to do that and I'm LSU, we're not starting, Miles that week.
No.
Okay. No, I don't know who the third-string quarterback is, but it's not the young hotshot freshman we brought in. It's some walk-on that's looking to run out that gate and be a Tiger for a day. This is a Rudy situation. You want a jersey? You want to play? You get to play this week, because nobody on scholarship is touching a football.
Hey. All right, that is going to wrap it up. So you and I have got some stuff that we've got to handle this evening. So let's go ahead and get out of here. Everybody go check out winningcureseverything.com. Of course, all of our picks, previews, podcasts, videos, and social media platforms are over there. Joseph said, are we going remember the Titans and play both sides of the ball? Maybe. We'll see. We'll see what goes on, but I would hope
Power 5 football, we're not.
No, I don't think so. There's enough walk-ons. There's enough practice squad guys. We'll get it figured out one way or another. With that said, go to the website, winningcureseverything.com. Go over to sportsbookreview.com. That is where you will be able to find all of our college football content beginning in August, and we are very, very close to that. So With that said, we're getting out of here. You guys have been fantastic. Thank you for jumping in the chat and helping drive the conversation. We appreciate you guys. Go over and subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts. Leave a nice 5-star review. We definitely appreciate that. You guys have been wonderful on that. We keep moving up the rankings. We appreciate your help in doing that. Everybody take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we will see you again tomorrow. Thanks for checking out Winning Cures Everything. If you want to keep up with us, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Visit the website at winningcureseverything.com, or you can like us on Facebook or follow us at Winning Cures, at Gary WCE, or at Chris B. Giannini on Twitter. Share out the show, leave a nice review,